A father's sacrifice, a life-changing accident, and an unexpected twist of fate. Matthew's journey from despair to hope begins with a simple act of kindness. But little does he know, the life he saves will lead him to an incredible second chance. Stay tuned for this heartwarming story of resilience, courage, and redemption. Matthew was going through one of the most challenging periods of his life. A divorced father, he had willingly given custody of his daughter to her mother, believing it was the best decision for their little girl. Despite the separation, Matthew and his ex-wife maintained a civil relationship, working together to ensure they made the right choices for their daughter's well-being. In the wake of the divorce, Matthew chose to leave their shared home behind, allowing his ex-wife and daughter to stay there. While this decision was financially straining, he was determined to do whatever it took to provide stability for his family. To make ends meet, Matthew took on a night shift at a construction site in addition to his regular office job. It was exhausting, but for him, securing his daughter's future made every sacrifice worthwhile. However, Matthew's already difficult situation took a devastating turn. One night at the construction site, a severe oversight led to an accident. He fell victim to negligence and ended up with a broken right arm. To make matters worse, his employer refused to take responsibility, claiming he hadn't yet been officially enrolled in their insurance system. The blame was unfairly shifted onto Matthew, leaving him without any compensation or assistance. Matthew's daytime job, an office position that required extensive computer use, became impossible to manage with his injury. His employers, though sympathetic, placed him on unpaid leave until he recovered. This meant he would have no steady income for the next few months. Now desperate, Matthew began searching for any kind of daily work he could manage. The weight of his financial struggles pressed heavily on him, but his determination to support his daughter kept him going. No matter how hopeless things seemed, he was unwilling to give up. His love for his daughter was his driving force, and he vowed to find a way to get through this ordeal. Matthew's search for temporary work was met with rejection after rejection. Every store or business he visited turned him down, citing his injury as a liability. As the snowfall grew heavier, he felt the weight of despair settling in. Finally, deciding he could try again another day, Matthew started making his way back to his apartment. To save time, he cut through a park, trudging through the snow with his thoughts clouded by frustration and uncertainty. As he approached a massive oak tree in the center of the park, something unusual caught his attention. The tree's snow-covered branches were swaying unnaturally as if something or someone was up there. In a matter of seconds, Matthew's heart sank as he saw a small girl fall from the tree, landing hard onto the snow-covered ground. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward her. The park was eerily quiet, with no sign of the girl's family or anyone else nearby. Matthew knelt down and carefully lifted the unconscious girl with his good arm. His pulse quickened as he scanned her for any visible injuries. Her face was pale and her tiny frame was frighteningly still. Panicked but determined, Matthew fumbled to pull his phone from his pocket and dialed 911. As he described the situation and gave the location, the dispatcher began asking him questions to assess the girl's condition. Following the dispatcher's instructions, Matthew gently laid the girl down on the snow and checked her head. Parting her hair with trembling fingers, he noticed blood seeping from a wound hidden beneath her dark locks. "There's bleeding," he said, his voice shaking. The dispatcher instructed him to apply cold and pressure to the wound to slow the bleeding. Acting quickly, Matthew yanked off his scarf, plunged it into the snow, and pressed it against the girl's head. His heart raced as he tried to stay calm, doing everything the dispatcher told him while glancing around the empty park for any sign of help. Just as the tension reached its peak, he spotted paramedics running toward him through the snow. Relief washed over him as they reached the girl, transferring her onto a stretcher with practiced efficiency. One of the paramedics turned to Matthew and asked, "Do you know this girl's family?" Matthew shook his head, his voice strained. "I don't know her. I just saw her fall from the tree and came to help." He quickly explained what had happened. The paramedics nodded and thanked him before rushing the girl to the ambulance. Matthew hesitated for only a moment before following them. He couldn't bring himself to leave her alone. If there was anything he could do, even if it was just being there, he wanted to help. As he climbed into the ambulance, Matthew's thoughts raced. He had no idea who the girl was or what her story might be, but he knew one thing for certain: he wasn't going to let her face this alone. When they arrived at the hospital, the little girl was immediately taken into the emergency room for examination. Matthew was left to wait in the hospital's cold, sterile waiting room. Sitting there, his thoughts drifted to his own young daughter. His heart ached for the girl's family who were likely frantic with worry. He silently prayed for the child's recovery, hoping that she would be okay and that her family would be found soon. The girl, appearing to be around 5 or 6 years old, had no identification or belongings with her. I hope her family can be reached soon, Matthew thought, glancing anxiously at the doors to the emergency room. After what felt like an eternity, the doors opened and a doctor stepped out. Matthew jumped to his feet, his voice laced with urgency. "How is she?" The doctor explained. The bleeding on her head was likely caused by a tree branch during the fall. However, the impact has caused a concussion. We'll need to monitor her for 24 hours and run some scans to fully assess her condition. We'll know more after that. Matthew's chest tightened as fear gripped him. The thought of such a young child being in this condition broke his heart. He asked, "What happens now?" "Her family hasn't shown up yet." The doctor nodded sympathetically and added, "Time was critical. She's also anemic, and the blood loss, combined with prolonged exposure to the cold, could have caused permanent damage or worse, if she hadn't received help when she did. You may very well have saved her life." "Thank you." Matthew managed a small, grateful nod and thanked the doctor for the update before returning to his seat. He knew he could do nothing now but wait. About 20 minutes later, 2 police officers entered the hospital and asked to see the girl. Matthew's stomach tightened with worry, unsure of what this could mean. Before long, a woman rushed into the hospital, tears streaming down her face, flanked by 2 men in tailored suits. "Where's my daughter?" the woman cried out, her voice breaking as she leaned against the reception desk. The receptionist spoke calmly, explaining that the child's medical condition was being assessed and that she couldn't see her daughter just yet. The woman, Emily's mother, Matthew presumed, began to sob uncontrollably. Matthew felt a pang of sympathy, but he didn't dare approach her. He couldn't even begin to imagine the pain she was feeling. Instead, he stayed where he was, unsure of what to do next. One of the suited men approached the receptionist and asked something in a low voice. The receptionist gestured toward Matthew and the man walked over. "You found her?" the man asked. "Could you tell us exactly what happened?" Matthew recounted everything, how he'd seen the girl fall from the tree, checked her condition and called for an ambulance. The man listened intently before finally saying, "Her name is Emily. She ran away from home after a fight with her mother. We've been searching for her since early this morning." Matthew hesitated before asking, "Are you her father?" The man smiled faintly. "No, I'm their assistant. Emily's mother, Anna, is a very prominent figure. I handle their security and other responsibilities." Matthew nodded in understanding and refrained from asking further questions, not wanting to intrude. As he glanced back at the distraught mother, he silently hoped that Emily would recover quickly and that this family's nightmare would soon come to an end. Even after a few hours, Matthew couldn't bring himself to leave. He wanted to know how the little girl Emily was doing. Deciding to give her mother some comfort, he headed to the hospital cafeteria and bought 2 cups of coffee. With the cups in hand, he walked toward the waiting area where Anna and her assistants were seated. As Matthew approached, one of the suited men stiffened, ready to intercept him. But the man who had spoken to Matthew earlier raised his hand, signaling that it was fine. Matthew nodded in acknowledgement, then extended one of the coffees toward Anna. "Hi, I'm Matthew," he said softly. "I thought you could use this." Anna looked up at him with tear-filled eyes and a grateful smile. "Oh, thank you so much," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't even realize you were still here." Matthew sat down a respectful distance away. "I just wanted to make sure your daughter is okay," he said, his tone reassuring. Anna took a shaky sip of the coffee, her hands trembling slightly. "It's been such a hectic time," she began, her voice heavy with guilt. "Work has been overwhelming, and I haven't been as present for Emily as I should have been. She must have felt so alone. And then she ran away. I can't stop blaming myself." She paused, her voice breaking. "Oh God, please let her be okay." Before Matthew could respond, the doors to the emergency room opened, and a doctor approached them. "We've completed all the scans and assessments," the doctor said, his tone calm and professional. "You'll be relieved to know there's no permanent damage. However, we'll need to keep Emily under observation for a few days. To ensure her recovery, we'll be keeping her sedated to prevent any movement of her head. But rest assured she's going to be fine." Anna let out a deep, shaky breath, her hands covering her mouth as she tried to process the relief. "Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much," she managed to say between soft sobs. "The first 24 hours are always the most critical," the doctor added. "But I'm confident she'll recover fully." We'll administer some blood transfusions to help her regain her strength, and she should be back to normal soon. Try to rest easy." Matthew couldn't help but smile in relief. "That's great news. I'm so glad," he said sincerely. "Again, I'm so sorry for what happened, but it's good to hear she's going to be okay." Anna nodded, tears streaming down her face. She opened her mouth to speak but couldn't find the words. Overwhelmed with gratitude, she instinctively reached out to touch Matthew's hand, but stopped short when she noticed his arm in a cast. "Oh," she exclaimed, her voice full of concern. "Your arm. I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. What happened?" Matthew glanced at his cast, giving her a reassuring smile. "It's nothing, just a little accident at work," he said casually. "Don't worry about it. I'm fine." But Anna's expression didn't change. "I'm so sorry you've been through this too," she said softly, her gratitude and sympathy evident in her eyes. Anna looked at Matthew, her expression soft but tired. "Would you mind waiting here for a moment?" she asked gently. "I just need to freshen up." "Of course, take your time," Matthew replied. As Anna walked toward the restroom, one of the suited men turned to Matthew, offering a nod. "Tough break, man. Hope you're doing okay. What kind of work accident was it?" Matthew sighed and explained everything, how he had taken on a second job at a construction site to support his daughter and how negligence had led to his injury. He described the employer's refusal to take responsibility and how it had left him both physically and financially strained. The man shook his head, sympathy in his eyes. "That's rough, buddy. I'm sorry to hear it. The world's full of unfair people, but trust me, there are worse out there." Matthew tilted his head slightly, curious. "You've seen something like this happen to you?" The man chuckled, shaking his head. "Not me, but in this line of work we see a lot of things." Matthew nodded slowly, though he didn't fully understand. Before he could ask more, Anna returned, looking more composed. "Matthew," she said with a small smile, "please let me buy you something to eat. You've been here for hours, all for my daughter." Matthew hesitated but then nodded. "Sure, thank you. I could use something." The two of them walked toward the hospital cafeteria, trailed closely by the two suited men. As they reached the hallway, one of the guards stepped closer to Anna and leaned in to whisper something in her ear. Anna paused briefly, nodded, and then continued walking. Matthew couldn't help but notice. His curiosity piqued, he glanced at the man but said nothing. As they ordered simple sandwiches and coffee, Matthew found himself wondering just what kind of work these people did and why they seemed so cautious. As they sat down to eat, Anna broke the silence. "I heard what happened to you," she said, her tone both concerned and serious. Matthew shrugged and replied, "It's not a big deal, just something I have to get through." Anna frowned. "They wronged you. You've been treated unfairly and you deserve justice. You could fight this." Matthew let out a small, tired laugh. "Honestly, I don't have the energy or the money to take this to court." Anna shook her head slightly. "You don't have to," she said firmly. One of the bodyguards chimed in with a grin. "Buddy, you're sitting with the best criminal attorney in the country." Anna chuckled softly, but Matthew's eyes widened in shock. "Wait, really?" he asked, incredulous. Anna smiled. "He's exaggerating, but yes, I'm a well-known lawyer. Why do you think I have so many bodyguards? I work with high-profile clients, celebrities, politicians, and unfortunately that comes with risks. When Emily ran away, I panicked. I thought someone might have kidnapped her. But you found her and you saved her life. Let me return the favor and help you out of this mess." Matthew hesitated, still processing everything. "I don't want to be a burden," he said cautiously. The same bodyguard laughed lightly. "Trust me, helping people like you is what Anna lives for." Anna nodded, her eyes glistening with emotion. "Absolutely. People like that can't get away with this. If you don't stand up to them now, they'll keep doing the same thing to others. Let me handle it." After some brief discussion, Matthew reluctantly agreed, providing Anna with all the necessary details about his accident and employment situation. With a sense of cautious hope, he returned home that evening, emotionally drained. Needing comfort, Matthew visited his daughter and spent a few peaceful days with her. His ex-wife, who knew what he was going through, offered her support and made sure he didn't feel alone. A week later, Matthew received a call from Anna. "How's Emily?" he asked immediately. "She's doing much better," Anna replied warmly. "All thanks to you." After briefly discussing Emily, Anna shifted to the matter at hand. "Matthew, I've moved quickly on your case. I also reached out to some contacts to speed things up, given the urgency of your situation. I have some news." Matthew's heartbeat quickened. "What did you find out?" Anna's voice was calm but assertive. "Your case is clear. a workplace safety violation and a failure to process your insurance. I spoke to their lawyers and they initially offered $100,000 in damages. Matthew gasped. What? That's a lot. No, it's not, Anna countered firmly. It's nowhere near enough for what they put you through. I made it clear we weren't going to settle easily. They've now offered $150,000, plus a commitment to undergo safety audits every 3 months moving forward. Matthew was stunned, his mind racing. That amount of money could cover his daughter's education, help him buy a home and clear all his debts. This is unbelievable, he stammered. Anna's voice softened. You deserve this, Matthew. You've sacrificed so much for your family, and now it's time for you to have some security. Take this as a fresh start. Matthew's eyes welled up with gratitude. I don't even know how to thank you. Anna replied gently, just keep being the kind of man who saves lives. That's thanks enough. And so, a new chapter began in Matthew's life. Despite the hardships he faced, his selfless actions brought him unexpected rewards. With Emily's recovery and the compensation he received, Matthew was able to secure a brighter future for himself and his daughter. Sometimes, life presents unexpected opportunities, even in the darkest moments. Matthew found strength in his struggles and a chance to start anew, determined to build a better life for his family. If you enjoyed this heartfelt story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Also, let us know in the comments where you're listening from. I'd love to hear from you.